You know, I'd like to leave that air conditioner unit on if we can. Can y'all hear okay? Okay, good. Tonight we're going to try something really unique, and we are going to go live, mainstream, YouTube, Facebook. Diane's got it set up over here so we can share this with people throughout all of America and all of North America for that matter. There are a lot of people who are going to watch us tonight, so we welcome them, but we've got to ask this. We need you to turn your phones off, because if you've got Wi-Fi on, it's sucking all of our Wi-Fi to be able to run that, and people are going to see everything in clips. So if you don't mind turning those or shutting those down, we'd appreciate that very much. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. And what's so cool about tonight is we're here to celebrate Zane Powell and his life. And I know we've got some stories to share and to tell. And we won't keep you here too late tonight. We'll time everything, but there's just a handful of things I'd like to go through. First of all, a little maintenance. Those of you who are here for workshops this week, after we get done with our program tonight, we've got a lot of just shuffling that we need to do. So anybody that can hang out and help us kind of shuffle the tables back into place and the chairs where they go, we'd appreciate that very much. You know, the fun thing about tonight is we have friends of Zane here from all over America. We've had people who have flown in tonight special for this event from Seattle, from Minnesota, from Philadelphia, and from Florida. Not to mention everybody who's just driven from this close of an area. When you think about it, for us, trying to plan this event, we thought about this a long time ago, and how are we going to manage all the people that would want to be here? Originally, I was thinking about sending a postcard out to all the alumni of the school, and I decided there's just no way we could handle that many people. So we limited it down to about a month ago just through our social media. And with that, we've literally had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people contact us telling us that they would either be here tonight or that they couldn't make it, but wanted to wish Becky and her family and Zane's family their best thoughts and prayers. So that's really cool how many people have traveled from such a distance to be here. I've got some things I'd like to share with you first before I start with my little segment. And that is, we had a really unique thing happen here this year. And it involved the passing of Zane. And it was just really an event. The second week of the school year, we did a workshop for Narrowgate. And it was an opportunity for people to come and make a conference table that we turned around and we auctioned or sold that conference table. And we raised $20,000 for the Narrowgate Foundation with that one conference table, which is really a cool thing. We had 9 people who came to help us build that. The 9 people who came, a high percentage of them are here right now, are people who have been here for other events we've done for the Narrowgate. They're involved with the Narrowgate family. They wanted to do all they could to help. And it's just really a cool event. We had one guy show up for that event who was out of place. Everybody else knew each other, knew about each other. It was like a reunion, except for this one guy. And he was younger, had tattoos everywhere, had a bandana on. And because he was so out of place, the first thing I did was I said, we should go around and let everybody introduce themselves. So, you know, everybody knows everybody, but this one guy, he's the guy we're targeting to try to figure out who he is. And when he came around, it's new, and he feels out of place, and is kind of quiet and shy. He just said, my name's Gabriel, and I'm a painter. We know we're all thinking this guy lives in his car. And so what we should do is we should offer to see if he can maybe paint the bathrooms here at the school. He's a painter. And so he didn't say much the first day because he was still getting a feel of us. And it is a little intimidating to be here at times for the first time especially, but to be in this workshop because everybody was such good friends. So he didn't say much. The second day, he had to leave early because he had to meet his son getting off the school bus, so he wasn't here. That was the day that Zane died. And I didn't tell anybody about Zane's passing. Nobody. Because we had a Tuesday night slide event. And I wanted to share it with those people that evening. And we had Bill Spencer here, and I wanted to have Bill say a prayer. It's a very, very, very special event for us here. Bill did a wonderful job, very eloquent. That was about 6 or 6:30. The next morning, Gabriel was a little bit late coming in that day. This was Wednesday. And when he walked in, he came to me, and he gave me a painting. And this is a painting. And so I hope everybody can see that. And I'm thinking the guy paints bathrooms. And he's giving it to me and said, last night, at about 6 o'clock, I got up off the couch and I told my wife, God is calling me to give Mark a photo. And his wife goes, are you sure? And he goes, I don't know why. I'm being called to do this. He's never met Zane. He did not know Zane's passing. Nothing. The next morning, he brought in one of his incredibly valuable pieces of art, and he's handing it to me to give it to me. He goes, I don't know why. I don't know why. But I want you to have this. And then he started to tell this story. And this is before I even mentioned Zane. And he told me the story. This is a tree, and you can see it's a tree with lumber for joints, or for bolts for joints, and you can see the annual growth rings in every part of the body. And the tree is sitting there because the tree is passing on life. And it's touching a nut, and a new tree is coming out of it. And it was just like, you got to be kidding me. He goes, no, I don't know why, but I feel drawn to give you this today. And that's when I told him the story about Zane. And it was just like, we're just sitting there and we're just dumbfounded. A guy that paints bathrooms, by the way. And then we started to look at his webpage, and we start to find out that this guy is Indiana's he's our premier artist. And he's actually world renowned, but he lives right here. And he started to come back and he started to take classes. Well, I called him last night because what I wanted to do is I wanted to do this piece of artwork over here that I could have everybody sign. So if you haven't signed that yet, I need you to sign it before you leave. Okay? And then we're going to give that to Becky. And then we can make prints of it for the school. But I wanted to do that tonight. And I called him last night, and he said, I'm going to do it for you right now. He's never met Zane, and he went out of his way from his schedule to paint that and came here today to give it to us. If somebody who doesn't know Zane is drawn like that to be a part of the family, that's unbelievable. This is why we have people come from all over the country. This is why we have people today who haven't been here for years who came today. And it's just absolutely unbelievable. So we welcome you tonight, and we want to share stories. What I'd like to do as we get started is I'd like to ask Becky to come up and just let her tell us a little bit about how thankful she is for you and for the support you've given her over the last year. And let you just know how much you guys mean to her and what's happening. So let's give Becky a big round of applause.
I was telling Mark and Susie that I feel like I need to get up. And thank you guys. I didn't mean to do this. You guys have been wonderful. When we first found out Zane was sick, cards started rolling in. And he's going, why are they doing this? And I said, well, because they love you. And he was just overwhelmed with it. He couldn't imagine the impact that he had on you guys. And then money started rolling in because we couldn't do, he couldn't do the traditional therapy for cancer. So we went natural, which is very expensive. Insurance doesn't pay for it. And when Mark and Susie let people know, money just started coming in. So we were able to do that. One of the doctors that he had seen said that he had just a matter of weeks. He lasted 9 months, and that was the help of you guys. So from my part, I want to thank you, because I really had a hard time with it. got diagnosed with Zane, I was a mess. I was like, no, I can't lose him. I can't lose him. What do I do? And God gave us that time to heal. He gave us time to understand that He was calling him home. It wasn't something that, it was just happening. It was Him calling him home. So Zane was, he understood that. He was ready. And Marc and Susie came quite often. And poor Doug, every time Doug come to see him, he was sick. Doug was there holding his hand. And it was just amazing, the last couple weeks. He goes, I'm ready. He goes, I'm ready. He goes, I'm going to be in heaven. And it's like, yes, you are. And so God gave us that extra time to be able to accept. And through all the cards and all the help that we got from you guys, then He realized what an impact He had on your lives. Because I have boxes of cards that I've kept. And it was just nothing negative in any of it. And it was so funny because he would lay there or he would sit there, whichever, and he would start reading them. And he's going, well, I thought I made that person really mad. And he goes, and I'll read for nice words. Well, yeah, you've made me mad several times, and I still have nice words for you. So, he was just amazed. I mean, he was in awe of you guys, of the love and the support that you gave both of us. So I wanted to come up tonight, not cry in front of you, but I wanted to thank each and every one of you, because it was all your prayers and all your donations that kept him around for as long as he was. So I wanted to thank you from my heart, my daughter, my son, our grandkids, the son-in-law, daughter-in-law. We all thank you very much. So thank you.
I'd like to take a few minutes and tell you a little bit about me and Zane and our background, where we come from. And his family was here. We did his funeral here, and his family was here for that. And so they got to hear it then, but I'm going to go through it again so that you can know. Zane and I went to high school together. Actually, we met in elementary school. We both took band together. We were both drummers. He was good and I was not. We went to high school together, and it was great. But in high school, I chose sports, and he chose to stay in the band. And I can still to this day remember the cool thing back then. This was in the middle of the 70s, early mid-70s. Every year, our county fair would have the Battle of the Bands. And it was so cool to go and see these great kids playing music that was really good, and Zane was the guy playing the drums. That was just so cool to see that. We graduated together in 1977. And I went my way and he went his way, as most kids do when you graduate from high school. I went off and got a degree, and Zane went right into the cabinet business of all things. The job was available, and he took it, and he went, and he worked for a company probably about 10 or 15 miles from here for the first number of years. After I graduated from college, I immediately started my own business in woodworking. And some of you know my story, but that's not tonight. After about 4 or 5 years, as my business was starting to grow, I really needed some help. And my uncle was a taxidermist. And actually he was a principal, but he was a taxidermist. It was a part-time job. And I would make his fish boards and these deer head boards and all that for him. It was a great business for me when I started, because it was always there. And one day I went to deliver some plaques to him, and there was this beautifully made cherry board. And I asked him, who made that? He goes, a guy by the name of Zane Powell. I go, Zane Powell? Wow, man, I know him. And so I came back home and I called Zane, found out he was working for a cabinet company. And I asked if I could come and take a tour, and I went, and he gave me a tour of where he was at. And I realized that he had really good talent in working with wood. Now, as a kid in high school, you don't see those kind of things. But I saw it and recognized it then. And I wanted him to come to work for me. But I was at a point in my business career where I just couldn't afford to bring Zane on. But we kept in contact. We talked about it. And then finally one day, he knew how to make doors, or he knew how to assemble cabinets, because he was in a cabinet business that was a production-oriented business. And Mars was a full-fledged, but he caught on really quick, and obviously became a world-class master craftsman, as we all know him as. But it was fun to watch that develop. In time, things started to change for me, and he was going to get this other job, but he still stayed on because that job never happened. And at times, he and I would go back and talk about that. How would our lives be different if you had gotten this job and not come to work for me? How would my life be different had you not come to work for me? Because he was able to turn things around and was just great. So we affected each other's lives. He basically worked for me almost his entire adult life. In 1990, opportunity happened, and I started the school. And my goal from the beginning, Zane and Herman, who's back over here, helped put every nut and bolt and screw in this building. They helped prepare it. They got it ready for the school. So he was involved from day one. I couldn't afford to have him work for me at that time, but the goal was as soon as we could, he would come here and work. And he did. And I believe it was probably the second or the third year when he came here and worked full-time. But even when he wasn't working for me full-time here, he was still coming on his vacation taking workshops here. So it was really fun to just see him grow more into the craft. Of course, you know what happened when he came here to become a part of our program. In a few short years, he started to teach. In a few years, he took over for Roger Cliff when he passed away doing his basic cabinet making class. And then he started to grow into more and more workshops. And he started to change people's lives. And it's so fun to watch that happen. And so we're all blessed for that. You know, and he has two younger sisters, Gail and Deanna, who are right here. And Zane mentioned he graduated from Whiteman High School in 1977. He married Becky in April of 1978, right after high school. They had two children, Justin and Leslie. Leslie is here. Justin would have been here, and a big part of why we planned this at this point in time in the year was because we wanted Justin to be here. He's in the military, a career man, and he took so much time off during the illness that he was not able to get off to come tonight. But he would, and his family would be here. Justin married Misty, and they have two children, Caleb and Kaylee. Leslie married Joshua, and they have four children, Trinity, Mercy, Eternity, and Elijah. Think about those names, isn't that cute? Zane and Becky have been a member of the Indianapolis Church of Christ for 29 years, and Zane was the drummer for the worship band. He entered eternity April the 9th, 2019, just 2 days after his and Becky's 41st anniversary. He loved his family, camping, fishing, and he clearly was a true master craftsman. We all know that. You know, one of the things for me in Zane is I know that on that day, June 21st, 1958, God broke the mold into 1,000 pieces. Right? Because there's never been another one like him, nor will there ever be another one like him. The mold was broken. And we all had a chance to get to know him over these years. And I sit back and I think, how do I best describe Zane? How would you best describe Zane? If we could put it down to one word, maybe two, what would your word be? You know, you've got husband, father, brother, neighbor, son, friend, funny. We could go on with all these different terms, and every one of us would come up with something different. Me too. And I thought a lot about it over the years, and what would my word be to best describe Zane? And I believe that word would be envious. Now I know that that's a terrible word to think of when you watch somebody go through what he went through the last 9 months of his life. All the time I went to see him, he was in horrible pain. He was not well. He was losing weight. He couldn't eat. He had tubes coming out of his body. And it was tough. I'm not envious of that. Nobody would be. I'm envious of the other things. I'm envious of the fact that he was always the funniest guy in the room, and he never told a joke. Think about that one. I'm envious of the fact that he was an incredibly caring person. As long as I've known him and Becky, as long as I've known him, they have had other people staying in their house or taking care of people. They always have. Just a few years ago, they had 3 young boys with them. They were taking care. Their door was always open to help people, and I'm envious of that. I couldn't do that. I'm envious of the fact that he was a brilliant craftsman. I'm not. I'm nowhere close to him, and I never will be. And I'm envious of that. I'm envious of the fact that there are times in my life when I keep thinking that, God, I wish everybody knew how good this was for me. Prideful. He's never been prideful in his life. He never wanted anything more. He never stood out in front of people. He didn't have to. And I'm envious of that. I'm envious, and all of us in here who have a spouse love our spouse greatly. But I'm envious of a spouse who would jeopardize her job to take care of her husband. Who was there for him hand and foot, no matter how sick he was. She was right there. When we'd have to turn our head and walk away, she was there. And I'm envious of that. I'm envious of how he worked here with such a servant's heart. I'm envious of the fact that in all of these years, and all the thousands of people that have been through the door here, nobody ever said a bad word about him. Ever. Ever. I'm envious of that. Because I know what people say about me. I didn't think that was going to be funny. I'm envious of the love. And it shows tonight. I'm envious of the fact that he's in heaven right now and I'm not. Because I know he's with Jesus Christ. And I can only hope that someday that'll happen for me. And I'm envious. And I guess we all look at Zane and we try to figure out how he's impacted our lives. We're all envious to a degree, aren't we? Of the changes. And so here's how I'd like to finish what I have to say tonight. Remember I told you about the mold was broken into 1,000 pieces? Well, you have those. We all have a piece of that mold. It'll be with us forever. We'll have him to remember for the rest of our life because we all have a part of the mold that God made in him. Amen? Here's what I'd like to do. We've got a little bit of time, and I know y'all have stories of Zane, and some of you, I don't want this to be a night where you feel a fear of coming up and talking to people. It's not that kind of night. Tonight's a night to rejoice and have fun. And to tell stories. Maybe some might get him in trouble a little bit. We don't have time for the mic to be open, and some people can ramble like me, and I apologize for that. But I would like to give you an opportunity. I know some of you have something that touched you. A lot of people who were here for workshops and ready to walk out the door, it was Zane that talked them back in. And if that's your story, that's good. Just if it was one of my classes, leave that part out. And so I don't want to be fearful, but I would love for you to come up. And please don't be offended. We know that there are many people that would like to say something. And I don't want to be here all night. I know you don't either. But we'll limit everybody to just a few minutes and share your heart with us. Okay? So anybody like to come up? We'll give you an open mic.
I made some notes.
Hold on, time out.
I made some notes on some stuff, but Mark pretty much went over the things that I was going to say about what Zane did and Becky did, and buying Christmas gifts and Easter presents and all that kind of stuff for people. But you asked a question earlier about how we would describe Zane in one word. And that was the theme of what I was going to say, and I'll cut it a lot shorter because you've already covered it. My word for Zane would be others. Others. That was always, he was always lifting up others. So since you've covered all that other stuff, I'll just, in my part, would say back in the 60s or 70s, Tennessee Ernie Ford made a song very popular called Others. Lord, help me live from day to day in such a self-forgetful way that even when I kneel to pray, my prayer should be for others. Others, Lord, yes, others, let that my motto be, help me to live like others, that I may live like thee. And when my work on earth is done, and my new work in heaven's begun, may I forget the crown I've won, while thinking still of others.
I had to run off a copy of an email that Zane sent me. I'm sure this is a second, but as a speaker for working with you 20 years and getting to know Zane, I went from Mr. Powell to like, here's my supply list, to ZZ, Z-Man, ZZ Top. His words for me unmentionable, but we got to be brothers, so it rolled on that one. Now, following him on Tuesday night was a rough hoe because that natural dry wit he had just would always crack you up. And I had it apprenticed by Marc. It was this, when you're running PowerPoint and Zane would go click, 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 and all of a sudden a picture of you at Halloween would have a bump. And I went like this, he goes, there's my wife. And then she rides the bus, and the buses are doing a wheelie. And the next slide after that, I'm going, what just happened? He's cracking me up. I'm going, this is insane. He was that kind of guy. And so he loved the Beatles. We told Beatles stories. His favorite Beatles story we shared together was I was shooting pool with a friend of mine against two young kids in the pool hall, and the song comes up. We go, na 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 na. And the kid sing. He goes, hey dude. I go, kid, it's not dude, it's Jude. He goes, you're old, whatever. Who was that? It was Paul McCartney. Yeah, he was with Wings. So shut up and shoot. So, Zane and I was always doing one line. You had to really pay attention because we worked on songs and lyrics because we both were into music. So here he is in Kansas writing this email. So it goes on. I'm in Kansas. Now the word Kansas is in capital letters, which is my clue. Pay attention, right? I'm in Kansas now getting some pretty little women there, and I'm going to give me one IV treatment and a vitamin high dose too. So you have to know the song Kansas City to play this tune. And he goes, we will take another 6 here, and I don't think we'll be in Kansas anymore. We looked everywhere for the little dog too. That guy's in misery. He's cracking me up. I'm going, what? You need your own zip code, you know what I'm saying? So really, one day we were talking about saying, is your glass half full or half empty? And he asked me that, and I said, well, that depends. And he goes, on what? I go, well, am I drinking or am I porn? And the thing is, his cup was neither. It was always full. And if your cup was empty, he'd fill it. And his would still be full. And that's what I will remember of my brother Jay. Zane is my name.
So Zane's first job was actually delivering the Daily Journal after high school, after school, back when we were kids. And, you know, I'd always help him. I'd carry the heavy load and he'd take the papers and go. Because he always wanted to get done quick, so he'd be on the bike, he'd be riding outside one of these. Didn't matter where they landed. In the bush, under the bush. None of them ever landed on the roof, but just so he could get through the job. And then some, and you know how Zane is, he's always talking to everybody, and there's a guy at the end of the route that gave us cookies. He said, if you ever have any extra papers, you know, there's always cookies here. So Zane would always skip a house to make sure he had a paper for this guy so he could get some cookies. So his work ethics has changed a little bit. His other job was at Jerry's restaurant. We worked together, and he worked curb service. And that's somebody pulls up, and they have a microphone there, and they call in. And Zane would always turn the mic off in the restaurant, so people would be out there calling, and nothing would come through. And then they finally drive off. So I'm glad to see that his work ethic has changed a lot since we were young. That's all I wanted to say.
My name is John, and I've taught here for a number of years. And since we're using words to describe Zane, I would use the word centered. And the thought that the memory I have the most of Zane is not a time when he was being funny or joking or something, but it was a time when the class wasn't going so well, and I'm really stressed out, and we're so far behind. And Zane's over here having a fun time, and he recognizes in the middle of all this that things aren't going so well, so he just kind of pulls me aside and goes, okay, you know, and he just took command of the situation. And I learned so much from Zane in terms of how to handle a class, a group of people, staying on schedule. He was organized, and you don't see all of that in all the fun things that are going on. The humor in the class is important to kind of keep things light and keep you from getting too stressed out. But I recognize Zane as centered. He quickly could recognize the situation, just kind of bring it back where it needs to be and get you back on track. So the very last picture I had of Zane was last summer, sitting right over here on the chair with his head back, just laughing. And I texted it to him, and he goes, oh, I love that picture. So I remember that, and I remember his ability to just, very talented at just being able to handle a group of people. So that's mine.
My name is Mike, and I have to describe Zane one word, to be humble. He never thought that he was anything special. First time I came here was in 2008. I was in Marc's marketing class, and he says, he knew I was a big Beatles fan. You gotta meet Zane. You gotta meet Zane. So I found Zane, and we talked, and next thing you know, Beatles. And like I said, at the end of Casablanca, I think it was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And it was. I think 2008 was a good time for me to meet him as a Beatles fan, because I found out, and Marc told me that earlier that year, his house had flooded, and he had lost all his Beatle collection. And I had more than enough in my Beatles collection, so every time I came here, I brought a piece of my collection and donated it to Zane. And he appreciated it so much, because I really believe he didn't think he deserved it. But it made me feel so good to help him start to build his collection again. And a couple of years after that, I think he felt like he needed to do something for me. So he bought this shirt for me. And every time I put it on, I would think of Zane. So when Zane passed, I took the shirt and I had just put on it in memory of Zane. And now, every time I take a class here, this is the shirt I'll be wearing the first day of class in honor of Zane, because I loved him. Thank you.
My name is Betty. I didn't get to spend as much time with Zane as many of you, but it took me only one class to realize that as old as I am, you look back and maybe there's one teacher in your life that you remember. And for me, it was a grade school teacher that I always thought that was a special teacher. But after I took the first class with Zane, I realized that at my ripe old age, I have met now 2 teachers that I will never forget. And the word that I would always remember him by was he was the zaniest. In the most positive sense that you can be zany.
My name is Sherry, and I have a friend, her name's Tracy. She wasn't able to come tonight. But when I found the woodworking school online, I went crazy and I showed Tracy. Tracy got to come here first before I did. And so the next year I was all excited. I was getting ready to come to the school. And she said, I'll tell you, she said, if it gets really stressful, look for Zane. Because he'll help you out. And she told me a few times when she went for her first turning class, she said Zane was the one that kept her here because she was about ready to walk out because it was really stressful for her. And I was here a year ago when I was having my hip problem, and I was just trying to get over it, and we were building a router table, and we had to cut a piece off, and I turned it the wrong way and I cut through a screw. And it flashed up and hit me in the face, and I thought, oh no, I just ruined their blade on the chop saw. And so I went to Zane and I said, I just cut a screw on the chop saw. He goes, didn't we see you? I said, no. He said, don't worry about it.
I've been fortunate enough to be an instructor here since the 9th year, I think, the school was in existence. And first thing I had to do, first person I talked to was Marc. Marc called me. And he said, now, anything you need, you call Zane. You call Zane. Of course, I've never been here, and I'm worried. I'm deep down conscious. It's like, well, we're going to need this and that. It's like, I think we got 1 or 2 of those. It'll be fine. Don't worry. It'll be fine. You just show. So I came, and Zane was quite entertaining. Now, this gentleman here pointed out the year of the flood. Now, I actually taught here at the time the flood happened. And it was very discouraging because Zane was supposed to be helping me in my class. And Zane was gone, and in fact, Marc was gone because Marc made Zane go somewhere else because he put it's so depressing. He's got to throw away everything he's got, all his pictures, all the things he loves, and you took the pickup truck, you took those loads to the dump and did all that. And sent Zane, I don't remember where you sent Zane, but he didn't go away. And I was a little upset that I didn't get to see Zane because, no offense, Marc, but Zane was part of the big draw of teaching here. And so I had to write him a letter. So we got to see him other years. And one of the fun things of getting to know Zane was seeing his garage. Now, most of you probably know that that's where he had his drum set. He also had his bandsaw in there. And most of you have probably taken a class at the Marc Adams School of Woodworking and know that there are very profound and significant unbreakable rules. And when you're not using the bandsaw, the guard is where, everybody? All the way down. So, Zane takes me in, shows me the drum sets, getting in there. He had kind of flashing lights. It was really kind of nice. And then I take a look at his bandsaw, and you know what? The guard was all the way up, and I never let him forget it.
And I worked with Zane here for 20 plus years. And I'll take a turn on the word that describes him, and mine is goofy. Just, if you'd ask him something and he'd give you a goofy answer rather than what you were wanting, he'd eventually get it to you, but he would take a different path. Just enough to, oh, come on, and then he'd tell me what I wanted to know. But there's a million things that will always remind me of Zane here. Here at home. But a funny thing would be about if I was going to say, both my daughters, if I say Zane, I know the thing they will remember him is when the school was very stark. We didn't have all those other buildings. There was some silly possum wandering across the property, and he wanders out there and just picks the possum by the tail, and we take him all the way back to the pond, and my daughters still think that's the funniest picture in our scrapbook. Zane carrying a possum around.
It's better that you don't know my name, but you can thank me because whenever you take a class and I'm in your class, I'm the reason that you get to go home and tell your spouse, well, at least I wasn't the worst one. So the first class I took here was with Zane, and I thought he was hilarious, but I had no idea what was going on, and I was falling farther and farther behind, but I kept coming back. And I always felt so good when Zane was doing the video camera because you actually saw what you were supposed to see, you knew where to focus it and how to keep it on track. So for me, Zane was the face of Marc Adams. He always, because he had to help me so much, we had a nice little relationship. And when I first came in here this year in April, and I realized that Zane was not going to be bursting out from the back of the school with big open arms and a smile to come up and give me his usual hug, I thought I was going to cry. And I was really feeling very empty at that time. And then when I went back and I saw two people that I recognized who were kind of okay the first year I'd seen them, which were Landon and Eric. And all of a sudden, they greeted me with a big smile and a hug, and I thought, oh my gosh, they learned so much from Zane. And so I took it upon myself to make sure they really became competent that week by challenging them to grow as woodworkers as I was. And I thought, you know what, it's going to be okay, because kind of like what Marc said, I realized that Zane has planted a piece of himself in everybody, and that was going to go forward, and it was going to be okay.
Hi, my name is Steve. I've been teaching here 15 years or so. And I remember the first time I met Zane, because if you're a teacher and you come here and it's your first time, it can be a little intimidating. Talking to him on the phone can be a little intimidating. A little intimidating the first round through. And I was just all scattered trying to set up, and if I had to describe Zane with the word, it'd be calming. Because he just comes up and goes, You got what you need? How you doing? And you knew that when he was saying it, he was looking for a legitimate answer. It wasn't just, I'm trying to get the heck out of here, so I feel the need to ask you this. No, that wasn't Zane. Zane was very, very sincere in that. And to reiterate, what John said, it's like if a workshop was getting out of a lot of control, which usually meant the instructor's getting too revved up, Zane was always that calming, just to sort of bring you back down. Are you where you need to be? What can I get you? You gonna finish out today? Where do you need to be at the end of the day? And I don't think he was as organized as you think. he was pretty good at keeping me organized. So, I'll give him that. And I had the same feeling showing up this year. It was just, what kind of hole is going to be here when you show up? And in a different way, Zane's still here. And it felt good being here. It felt good seeing people and just keeping going. So, but if I had to say Zane, it would be, we all know the humor, but he was just a calming force that just brought you right down.
My name's Nate. So one of the things I remember about Zane, Zane was obviously a great assistant. He was great. Whenever any of us were taking a class, he was the guy who could kind of feel where everybody in the class was at and get a pulse on it. And one time I was going to be assisting a class. It was going to be the first time I assisted. And so, I know Marc's going to be kind of watching me, even though he doesn't think I will think that he's watching me. And I wanted to, make a good impression and everything. So I asked Zane, I said, what is the key to being a great assistant? And Zane, as only he could, he goes, the key to being a great assistant is you have to be able to get asked really stupid questions without getting frustrated. He said, Marc isn't good at this at all. He said, somebody brings you a 3-inch piece of wood and they say, hey, Zane, I think I'm going to cut this on the chop saw. What do you think? You don't say, well, that's a stupid idea. You say, well, let's think about that. Maybe we can find something to clamp that in place. What do you say we get a piece and we hold it like that? And so he said, just remember, don't get frustrated. Stupid questions are okay. They're going to come. Just kind of keep an eye on them all and stay calm. So that was my Zane memory.
My name's Bob, and I've been really fortunate to be teaching here about 10 years. And on the drive over today, I was thinking about Zane, and what came to my mind was a good shepherd. That there are wolves and there are sheep, and there are guys like Zane that herd the sheep and keep the wolves away. And he really took care of me as an instructor. Made me look good about 85% of the time. A couple of years ago, he was helping in my class, and it was kind of hectic, and Zane would come up and, how are we doing? Are we on schedule? And I said, I don't have a clue. And later that afternoon, he started comparing my class to a class taught by Alf Sharp a couple of weeks before. And he kept bringing up Alf Sharp in relation to what was going on. And I said, wow, Zane, I am really flattered that you're putting me in the same category as Alf Sharp. He's one of my heroes. He's an amazing guy. Zane said, yeah, well, Alf's getting kind of old and forgetful too. He screws stuff up, and we have to scramble to make it work.
That was a good place.
This is a good one.
my name's Mary, and I take 1 week-long class a year, but I try to do some weekend classes. So I come down Friday afternoon, and I walk into class, and I see Zane, and he's like, and I said, what? He said, oh, God, gives me a great big hug. He said, I am so glad to see you. I thought, how sweet. I mean, that's just phenomenal. He said, that means it's almost time to go home.
Well, I really appreciate everybody sharing, laughing. I got one last thing that I'd like to say, and that is how this all came about. And it kind of reiterates what Becky said. When Zane was starting to feel ill, about this same time last year, he was having stomach problems, and Zane wouldn't go see a doctor. And I believe it was Doug who urged him, man, you gotta get this checked out. And so he went. He got it checked out, and we found out that they wanted to do a scan because these liver enzymes were all over the charts. And ultimately, they took him in and they did a scan, and I believe they did that on a Thursday or Friday. Monday morning, I'm just starting a joinery class, and Susie said, hey, in 5 minutes, I need to talk to you. And it's like, that's kind of weird. I'm just starting in 5 minutes. But I had a feeling it was something about Zane. And she came back 5 minutes later, and she came in and she said, Becky's here. Zane has cancer, and she'd like for us to be with her when she tells him. So we told him here, outside the cafeteria doors, that he had cancer. And it was a pretty tough thing, and we're all struggling with it. He took it pretty well, actually. And that day I kept looking at him thinking, does he realize what news he's just gotten? And you never know. But by the second and third day, he was so ill he ended up in the hospital and struggled from there. Probably the third or fourth day, we talked to Becky about what can we do? What can we do to help? And she said something like, well, what if we did a GoFundMe page? Because that's something we can all do. So Susie and I are working on a computer. It's like 9 o'clock at night, and we don't know how to set up a GoFundMe page. We don't know anything about it. And so we're trying to find our way through, and she's doing a good job, and we're looking at each other going, well, how much should we put on it? I don't know, $2,500? So we started with $2,500. That was about 9 o'clock at night. She hits the send button, and within 5 minutes we had $50. And within 5 more minutes we had another 100, and then 200. And before we went to bed that night, just a couple hours later, we were already almost maxed out at the $2,500. The next morning we got up and we were over it. We thought, we got to change it. What should we change it to? 5,000? I don't know. So I think we set it at 75. And literally before the end of that day, we were already at $7,500. And it just kept going and going. And at that point in time, that was when we first made it public, because we didn't really want people to know. We didn't know exactly what the future held for us at that point in time. And we started to realize, when I saw how sick Zane was, it really, really, really became a struggle in my life. And what became the biggest struggle in my life was Doug Dale. Now, I know that sounds bad, but what I mean by that is you realize the value of two people when you only have one that you're relying on at that point in time. And every time I look at Doug, I get emotional. I couldn't handle it because Zane was such an incredible force here, and so is Doug. And it was just hard for me to deal with it. But what really, really hit me, and to this day I still struggle with it, is the unbelievable outpouring of love. It's just unbelievable. And the GoFundMe page just kept going higher and higher and higher. I had instructors who were coming who'd never met Zane and donating all of their money that they made that week to Becky. And it just, you sit there and you think, how in the world could this happen? And the love and the cards. And though I didn't read the cards, and though I never counted the money, it was just overwhelming. And so what really struck me the most about Zane's life was the impact he had on my life. And what struck me the most about that was the impact that all of you have on all of our lives. And it's unbelievable to think that there could be a woodworking school in the middle of nowhere, USA, that has touched so many people's lives, changed lives. It's caused people to be so generous in ways that they might not have been generous normally. And to see it and to feel it, it's just been unbelievable. And so I just wanted you guys to know from the bottom of my heart, and Susie, and the staff here, knowing and seeing the incredible generosity and the love that people have had towards Zane, and the effect that he'll have on their lives for the rest of their lives. And the camaraderie and the friendship and the community that exists here because of like-minded and like-hearted people. And I just want you to know that tonight's a very, very special night for Becky and her family, and for the MASW family as well. And we thank you for coming. What I'd like to do, as we bring this to a close, is I'd like to bring Eric back up, let him give us a last prayer, and then we've got one special song that we'd like to sit through. So Eric, if you can come up.
Mark, he's coming. Let me thank you and Susie for making this event possible. It's very appreciated.
Before I do this, Mark asked me the other day, he said, would you be comfortable doing the benediction? And I said, sure. And I get in my car on my way home, and I thought, I wonder how Zane would do a benediction. And a benediction is supposed to be this, it's wishing people goodwill as you go, as you leave a place. And so I asked around tonight, I said, hey, what's some of the best Zaneisms you've ever heard? And I thought, as you're leaving this place, maybe Zane would say to you, get a bigger clamp. Some of you have seen that. Maybe he would say, just put a screw in it. Or he'd say, I know, let's paint it. And then I asked Doug earlier, I said, what was some you heard? And he said, hurry up so you have time to do it over. I thought that was a good one. And then he said, oh, and Zane was always saying, we must be really good because we always do it twice. And then he said, measure twice and do your best. Paint and putty will do the rest. And I thought, that's some really good wisdom. And then it occurred to me that maybe what Zane would want to send you away with was something that he had texted me. So while he's going through his sickness and he's in the hospital, he texted me out of the blue one day and he says, how's your kitchen going? I was remodeling the kitchen, it was miserable. And I said, man, this is, it's really rough, how you doing? And we chitted-chatted back and forth a little bit, and then he says, I love you. And I think that's probably what he would say to each and every one of you tonight. As you leave this place, know that you loved him, that it was reciprocal. He loved you too. And he loved you very much. And as much as you touched, or as much as he touched your life, you touched his too. And that's a great legacy. Would you pray with me? Father, we're thankful for this place. And we're thankful to be a part of something that's bigger and grander than us. And we are better people for having known Zane. So as we leave this place, I pray that we would take those pieces of him with us and that we would be better people because of it. So Lord, bless our steps as we go. May we reach others as Zane has reached us. And we ask for your grace in this. In Jesus' name, amen.